In my last video, I talked about why I think that currently modern gaming is mostly boring nowadays, and the creativity in them is steadily declining. Some of you made some excellent points in response to the first video, and that got me thinking about some very important topics I'll be discussing later in this video. But first, let me say this. You guys slammed my expectations. Thank you guys so much for all the likes, comments, and subs in the last video. I genuinely didn't think it was going to go anywhere. You guys came in clutch and inspired me to move forward. It has nearly 3K views, almost 200 likes. Like, you guys are absolutely fantastic. Being a content creator has also been a dream of mine since I was like 7 years old, always watching YouTube and seeing my favorite content creators. You know, it's very, very nice to see that things are actually looking good for me. But enough with the sentimentals. Let's talk about some problems I've been noticing in gaming that's kind of been ticking me off lately. I'm going to start off by prefacing that I'm in full support of creative expression in gaming. I think that giving characters unique characteristics and exposing historical moments in the narrative is very important because it gives the audience an authentic viewpoint, which usually feels like a breath of fresh air. Whether it be in their design, nationality, sexuality, or whatever, it gives depth to a character that allows a consumer or players to connect to them on an intricate level. However, what I do not like is when the main story plot tries to make the politics of the real world and certain details of a character the main point. Basically, what I'm talking about is woke culture. Woke culture has a bit of a negative rep nowadays because it was originally supposed to encourage more empathetic and compassionate interactions and a greater appreciation of different perspectives and experiences. To me, being woke is supposed to be a subtle approach to a social problem. Understanding the foundation of different perspectives is a powerful thing, without making it the primary point of a cause. Games for the last bit of a few years have somewhat adopted this philosophy, but executed it the wrong way. It feels forced and not fully explored whenever a political topic is introduced. A game a lot of you have probably heard about for its excellent gameplay and inversely its forced political views is The Last of Us 2. I remember playing the first The Last of Us, and for the majority of the game, there was little to no romance. If you haven't played or watched any of the gameplay, Joel and Tess had some moments that made you question how they felt for each other. But other than that, the relationship was mostly business. Of course, you can fantasize about what could have happened between them if she hadn't died, but I don't think Naughty Dog intended on having romance as a plot narrative in their game. For those of you who have skipped the spoiler, TLDR, there was little to no romance plots in The Last of Us 2. Now, here's the part where the game got me looking like, huh? The Last of Us 2 was born. For those of you unaware of the controversy surrounding the game, you have three main issues that are usually talked about amongst players. I will go into each of them in depth, but there's only one that I feel really deserves a controversy. Continuing on, the problem was that the players felt baited before the release of the game with a bait and switch tactic of a deliberate campaign to mislead people, in order to make the game story a surprise with the probably artistic goal of subverting expectations. That by itself would have probably been enough for polarized responses, but it also went sideways when a disgruntled employee leaked the story details, most likely in protest of the abusive practices. You can definitely feel the crunch Naughty Dog had to go through because it felt like they tried too hard with certain aspects of the game, then gave up on those same concepts later in the game. Why is this all an issue? Well, earlier I stated that the forced political views of The Last of Us 2 had created a lot of controversy. In the comparison to the first game, which had little to no romantic connections, the second game just bombarded you with so much unnecessary plot points. The scene with Abby having sex, the design that looked somewhat masculine, was totally not needed.
Abby.
The line about a character named Lev being transgender in the subsequent patriarchal society she was running from was interesting, but not needed. Ellie exploring her sexuality a little more as she was growing up was going in a great direction, until something happened in the developing process, and they said, hey, let's just give Ellie all this character development, only to diminish any growth she had throughout the entire game, with her only wanting revenge 90% of the story. And yes, while everything I mentioned was a critique at how these plot points were executed, and namely introduced, I still think those were some great ideas if they were explored and fleshed out a lot more. The Mulan sort of aspect of Lev wanting to be like a man in the society she was in could have been an excellent plot point to the story. Ellie actually developing a deep relationship with Dina instead of Dina basically being the babysitter to a rage-induced toddler would have been so nice. Don't even get me started on the alleged anti-black controversies with Naughty Dog and them trying to disprove that with race switches important characters in the live-action adaptation of the game. There are other games that recently released with some controversies, like Spider-Man 2 and Alan Wake 2, with people not liking the forced agenda each game had created. However, I think that a lot of these games that have these controversies are both good and bad. Good because I like when games explore different agendas and perspectives to tackle the story. Like I said earlier, I like refreshing content that feels both impactful and new. That was one of my biggest issues from my last video, as we don't see much creativity when it comes to game developing. From the gameplay aspect to the story aspect, it all kind of feels samey. Bad because when forced political viewpoints in the game is the main aspect of the content, it just feels like I'm reading some thread on Instagram about how everything is sexist or prejudiced. Like the whole point of playing a game is to escape reality, not load up World Simulator 2 with the same problems I see in real life. I feel like most people feel the same way. It's funny because I'm writing this script and I have to dance around my words in order not to offend the majority of people, but then I realize game developers probably do the exact same thing. They think that if they don't cover some controversy in their game, then it's misogynistic. So they play the safe game and just put stuff in content to hit the status quo of, did we tackle a social problem? To try and appease the people who are hollering SJW. It all kind of just sucks when you want to talk about real world problems in games, but I do think that the game developers shouldn't listen to the people who are hollering social justice warrior and creating whatever they want. When they do that, they create games that go down in history. I mean, think about it. I always talk about how a decade ago we had generally better games. Why is that? Because game developers didn't have to worry about if they offended someone or a group of people. It was simply, they lit a fire, grabbed the pen, and created straight fire. I swear that was the formula. I think the developers and companies should risk tackling a social problem in their own way because it creates a more authentic and intuitive experience for the average gamer. I highly suggest you watching Endomian TV about this topic because the way he describes this problem is S tier, better than any Forbes journalist could ever explain. I'll link his video down in the cards and description below. Sorry if I butchered his name, by the way, too. But his video is awesome, and like I said, I really hope you guys watch that video because he explains his point to a T. On one side of the coin, you have game developers trying to please a particular audience, but then on the other side of the coin, you have them also ignoring and blatantly going against the vast majority of their audience. What am I talking about? Well, I got one word for you: over-delivery. What is over-delivery? If it wasn't obvious enough from the word itself, it means deliver more than intentionally desired. For any sort of business that boasts the word, they usually refer to over-delivery as giving more content than agreed upon. An article from ExploreWhatWorks.com defines over-delivery in business as, quote, over-delivering creates an imbalanced exchange of value because the seller provides more than is paid for or agreed upon, end quote. Over-delivery has always been somewhat of an obstacle when it comes to any creation. It doesn't have to be gaming exclusive. TV shows and movie producers struggle with this philosophy because it's hard not to give something all you've got. But the problem lies after you've given your all. They all ask themselves, what can I do to top my best creation? Or make something even remotely similar? That's when producers or game devs decide on ultimately giving us less than quality content so that they can hype up the over-delivery content later. Bungie,
oh brother, this guy stinks!
The studio that by some chance either is on the shit end of the stick with the community or being praised as such a hard-working and accommodating company, released one of the most controversial GDC articles about over-delivery we've ever seen. Bungie's chief relays to us in the GDC, quote, "This is tough, and this is one honestly we're still grappling the hardest with. It is hard to tell a team that has extra cycles of energy and wants to do something amazing, that totally would be amazing and awesome for a game, to tell them we should not ship this because it is an over-delivery that will set us up for failure on future trains." See, this issue doesn't really lie in the philosophy of over-delivery because, as Paul Tessie states in his article in Forbes in response to Bungie, quote, "I think you can also view the over-delivery issue the way you view most normal jobs. How many times have you worked really hard to complete tasks at work efficiently only to be given more work by your boss because he or she can see you can do more? The lesson there is, don't over-deliver, as you will be punished for it later. If your boss says, 'Job well done,' you use that extra time for your own purposes, great, but that rarely happens. And that is not generally what happens with the live service community expectations, as I think you would know," end quote. This is an excellent point in order to understand the reasons why these developers enact this ideology, as it helps you feel more empathetic even if you don't agree with the over-delivery. The issue really lies in giving players under-delivered content and still making us pay $70+. That goes for any game, but for Bungie especially, because they continuously remove content that players paid for years ago and then repurpose that same content. But this time, it's locked behind a seasonal paywall, like, what? And it doesn't even end there, because what else can they do to make more money by putting in as little effort as possible? Oh God. Microtransactions and community feedback are arguably the biggest problems we've been facing for the longest time. With this day and age where prices are going up but our wages aren't, it's hard not to complain when games just want to promote their stores with new skins that cost nearly as much as the game or DLCs themselves. I'm looking at you, Valorant. Well, Valorant's free, but that doesn't matter. I'm looking at a lot of you damn games. I'm going to focus more on the community feedback, as I covered microtransactions in my last video. And if you haven't watched it by now, what are you doing? You're missing out on some top of the shelf content. Community feedback is essential to the lifeblood of a game. You can't have the most enjoyable, replayable, action-packed, story-packed game to ever exist, but if you have a deaf community manager, then that all gets thrown away. When people start feeling like their concerns aren't being heard with their words, then they will start talking with their wallet, and best believe they will talk with their wallet. People won't pay for new content or any of the skins that a game pushes out because no one will care much about it. Typically, this is an issue with live service games because issues can arise at any point and might need hotfixes and patches. Not only that, but when something gets shipped and is poorly received, Twitter and Reddit are the first places people go to when they have something to say. I've been getting back into Warframe lately, and I noticed just how well DE, or Digital Extremes, has been addressing community feedback. It's such a refresher from Bungie, who, by the way, was a nominee for Best Community Engagement.
Serious?
And it strikes me that all these live service games, all they have to do is engage. And not just only respond to game-breaking problems, but actively listening and communicating with the community. DE streams on Twitch every other week, and they do a fantastic job interacting with players. The unshakable reality is that you can't expect much from these games anymore, which is probably the most ironic line I can say, because first, we play games to escape that reality, and second, games are supposed to be highly anticipated and hyped about. Maybe it's not right to say you can't expect much from games, but more so keep your expectations a bit lower than you usually do in 2024. You can't separate politics from gaming because that's the core reason why a lot of games are regarded as exceptional. It's only bad when they try to influence you with their ideology and look down upon other perspectives with forced storylines and character design. Exceptional games are made when the developers take a risk and speak their truth and don't care about what the 1% of people have to say. That is what I believe game developers should do more. That's the meaning behind art. Art is used to tell a unique story of one's ideology and perspective. It should always be an educational or in an exposing light. Whether you agree with their views on the subject or not, art should always be having people talk and discussing it because it's more than just being right or wrong. The community feedback for gaming in general should also be handled much better moving forward. It doesn't matter if it's a AAA studio or a live service studio, feedback to the players is pivotal. Products are only as valuable as the players who consume it make it, and that's with anything in life. Thank you guys for making it to the edited video. Just again, thank you guys so much for all like the support you've shown me in the last video. It truly was mind-breaking, and like I definitely want to make more videos, and I have them all cooking. And you might see one very soon. They're not going to be just like the 2 videos you've seen on my channel. This is going to be something a little different, so get ready for that. But anyway, yes, like, comment, subscribe if you like sort of content, and I will definitely be posting a lot more. So, you know, follow me on any sort of social media to get updates. You know, I'll be having polls and stuff to see what sort of things you guys want me to talk about or others. And I do stream, so link down in the description of my Twitch and Kick and all that stuff like that. Any support would be so valuable. But yes, I will see you guys in the next video, and I hope you guys have an amazing new year. and much love to all of you.